A survey from Public Policy Polling revealed recently that 13% of potential voters would prefer to have a giant meteor crash into the earth and destroy civilization than to see either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump in the White House. Thank you and good night. Seriously, what need more be said? 13%. That's not a small amount of people. That's a lot of people saying, kill me. This has been the longest election cycle of my lifetime, and it began, I believe, sometime during the middle of World War II. I truly believe that by the time we actually have to vote, I will be unable to make it to the door. I will have been sapped of my will to live. The only good thing that has come out of this election cycle, quite honestly, is that it has made time seem longer. I've been noting with interest the fact that really none of the candidates, none who ran and the two that are now really left standing, and none of our leaders have any concept whatsoever of what to do about ISIS. And let me just say, oddly enough, I do. I know it would seem strange that I, someone of a limited military background, would understand this. And let's note that I had 3 years of service in the Cub Scouts. I did 3 USO tours of Iraq and Afghanistan during Christmas, and I learned a great deal from that. 21 days, I know more than any of these people. Many of them have said that we must bomb ISIS back to the Stone Age. Obviously, they have never spent time there. I've been to Ramadi. I've been in Fallujah. They are already in the Stone Age. What are you going to do, bomb them until they're dinosaurs? I realized what to do when the blizzard last year was coming to New York City. And just as a side note, when a blizzard or a hurricane is coming to anywhere in the United States, every weather person must be given a rabies shot. These are out of control. Seriously. It's not a blizzard and an asteroid shower, asshole. It's snow. It hits your hand, it melts. So as the blizzard was coming and throughout the entire winter, I took note of the fact that there was no mention of ISIS whatsoever. They disappeared. And it was then that I realized that ISIS was afraid of snow. So I feel, as winter comes and the snows form, that we get out there and shovel them. And we get them as quickly as we can to every Air Force base possible, and we bomb the shit out of them with snow. Because even in Atlanta, they don't know how to drive in the snow. To be honest, having spent this year watching what's going on, I have no idea what my job is anymore. Everyone in this room already has 30 Trump jokes that are probably better than any one that I thought of. What the do you need me for? I should have just come out and gone, ta-da! I've always felt that my job was to be truly crazier than what I see. That's what differentiates me from other comics. That I am crazier than what I see. Ball game's over. The first inkling I had of this was when I heard Ben Carson speak for the first time. When you're listening to someone, and as you listen to them, you begin to think, did I take a drug? Something's wrong. But I believe we have something to learn from Ben Carson, especially those of you who work in an office. There's probably a douchebag you're working with. Your boss is no doubt a prick. And you want to say something to them. All you have to do in order to get across what it is you want to say is to speak as Ben Carson does. And by this, I mean you speak as softly as you possibly can and yet still be heard. So that the person listening to you must use an inordinate amount of energy just to hear the words coming out of your mouth. And as you do that, speak as slowly as you possibly can, as if each and every word was being formed in your brain for the very first time. And be sure that your eyes are 2/3 closed so that you resemble a lizard sunning itself on the rock. And if you do that, you can say any batshit thing you want to anyone, as Ben Carson did when he said, it's amateurs who built the Ark, but it was professionals who built the Titanic. He said that in front of a lot of people. And no one came up to him and said, Ben, you'll have to come with us now. Another thing you must do is, as you're speaking, you be sure that your hands are moving in a way that has nothing to do with what you're saying at all. Not a goddamn thing. Be sure that they're moving in a way like, this is a nice way to do it. Because the person listening to you won't hear what you're saying. Because they'll be thinking, wow, what a great aquarium. And when you want to make your final point, do as Ben does. And as he did, when he be sure that your hands move opposite to the meaning of the words, such as, we must raise the middle class by lowering their taxes. The turning point came for me when I turned on the television one morning, and on the screen on CNN, and let me just say, it is absolutely vital for every American to watch CNN for 5 minutes a day. Why? Because it'll give you a good idea of what it's going to be like when you have a stroke. It'll just be two people mumbling, and the crawl will be going, wake up, wake up, wake up! There, on the screen, was Donald Trump. In the background, in the foreground, was Sarah Palin at the microphone. And I thought, how am I supposed to make this funnier? How do you satirize what is already satiric? I realized that we were now living at the intersection of reality and satire. We are living I believe in fictional times. And by that I mean that if you took the reality that we've been living through for a year and put that in a book, you'd read that book and you'd go, son of a bitch, great book. And then she spoke. Took my breath away. I was clueless. After just a few seconds, I wondered, maybe she's talking to another species. Or trying to guide aliens to come here and save us. It made no sense at all. The longer I listened, the worse it got. And then, that weekend, on Saturday Night Live, Tina Fey came on and did her brilliant Sarah Palin. And they performed, really, the news conference that I saw. And Tina Fey used about 85% of what Sarah Palin actually said. Her writers didn't have to work. And I thought, my job is done. I am thrilled to announce that I am moving on. I really discovered that what my next job would be, it came to me last Black Friday. And it was at that point in time, they announced that there were more gun background checks done on that day than in the history of the country. More guns were purchased than had been in a long, long time. And when I saw this, I realized that if Christians were buying weaponry as gifts for their loved ones in order to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, their Lord and Savior, then I, a Jew, knew a moneymaker when I saw one. And so I'm thrilled to announce that I have found an economically distressed area in Alabama, and I will be able to help them out because it will be there that I will be opening Jewy's gun store. I could not be happier. This is going to be a tourist destination. I mean it, because just if I just had Jews alone, people from around the world and the United States would flock there. Son of a bitch, they'd cry out, I gotta get to Alabama and see who Jew is. Next door, I will be opening a theater where my friend John Bowman will be performing the Hank Williams story. Next door to that will be an Irish pub, which is going to be run by Kathleen Madigan, a very funny comic, who also needs to be around alcohol 24/7 or her hands start to shake. I plan to build a giant Ferris wheel, the biggest Ferris wheel in the world. Why? Because Jew wants a Ferris wheel. And mounted at every seat will be a machine gun. Because you never know when a plane is going to attack you when you're on a Ferris wheel. Better safe than sorry, assholes. And in the back, I'll have a casino. Do we really need another casino? You're right, we do. What makes my casino different is when you hit the jackpot, Jew himself will bring you 2 6-guns, and you can fire them in the air. I know it may seem strange to many of you that I would choose to open a gun store, but to be honest, the NRA, after years and years, has finally gotten to me. Because they've really taught me that, well, guns don't kill people. Mentally ill people with guns kill people. And if we all had enough guns, we could kill all the mentally ill people. It was after Sandy, the NRA, that pointed out to the American people, we have a problem with mental illness. And whenever I think about the problem of mental illness, the first people that I want to talk with are the good folks at the NRA. Their work in the field of mental illness is, as we all know, legendary. We do have to deal with mental illness. And we're not gonna. We're not. Part of the reason we're not is because 40% of the American people don't think there is such a thing as mental illness. Do they? Mm-mm. That's 40%. And I just made that number up. I made that number up because I've watched politicians for the whole year making numbers up every day. And they're not supposed to be making numbers up. I'm a comic. I'm supposed to make shit up. My generation is the problem here because my generation was born and raised with no knowledge whatsoever of mental illness. None. We didn't know anything about it. You know, unless you had a family member who was mentally ill, and then if there was someone in the neighborhood who was mentally ill, they were hidden from the rest of the neighborhood because people were ashamed of it. So nobody knew, unless, okay, all right, the only time you heard about mental illness is if there was somebody with 16 personalities. You know, that the person who could play canasta by themselves. By the time I got to college, it was no different. None. None whatsoever. By the time I got to college, I took a course in Psych 1. And all I learned from that is that a pigeon will smash its face against something in order to get a pellet of food. You would think that even if we didn't know about it and what was up with mental illness in terms of dealing with it, that the National Institute of Mental Health would. But even by 2003, they funded 16 studies to find out how a pigeon thinks. They funded one study about postpartum psychosis. 16 studies to find out how a pigeon thinks? They could have called any New Yorker. We could have told them, I got a shit. Now I got a shit. I can't believe I'm still shitting. I thought I stopped shitting. No, I'm still shitting. French fries. I believe that we all learned about mental illness the same way that I did. I think we did that through dating. Come on, this is New York. I truly expected a bigger laugh there. Everybody in this room has been out with somebody, and on that third date, we're sitting there going, oh my God. They're talking to a sock puppet. I truly believe that now that the gays have come out of the closet, that the next group that has to come out of the closet are the mentally ill. But they're mentally ill, so they don't know where the door handle is. So we're going to have to open the door for them. We used to have places that dealt with mental illness. Throughout the country, until the early 80s, there were mental institutions throughout the entire country. These institutions took care of those who truly were the illest of the ill, the ones who could not deal with reality whatsoever. And what these institutions provided was a safe haven where they could go and get help and also begin to understand how to bring these people back to reality. Now, if you have a loved one who cannot cope with reality, the best you can hope for is to get them away for 5 days. And then you got to take them back. And everybody knows somebody who can't deal with reality 5 days, no problem. It's unbelievable. But we had those in place. And what happened? Starting with Kennedy and going through Reagan, the Democrats and the Republicans systematically took them apart and ended up closing them. Closed them down. Why? To save money. Well, we're going to have to deal with it again. And what's it going to cost? More money. Because that's the way it works. This bullshit about saving money is a crock of shit. When you've got something, a big problem, you deal with it. And you pay for it. Because if you wait, it's more expensive. And that's a Jew advising you on that. If you don't think we have a problem with mental illness, I need you to take a good long look at Congress. That is the largest outpatient clinic in the world. And we pay for their health insurance. think that every one of us, just after this year, is slightly mentally ill. I believe that. You know, you can see it all the time. You pick up the paper. I read, a while back that $640 million was spent by Americans purchasing Valentine's Day gifts for pets. Okay, that's the science. Something's wrong. Stink Muffin and Farty Lick don't give a shit. Okay? They don't have a calendar. They're not waiting by the door going, oh boy, I can't wait to see what they got me. You've lost touch with reality. If any of you purchased a Valentine's Day gift for your pet, you have to get counseling for at least an hour next week. The only time you can purchase a Valentine's Day gift for your pet is, let's say, your cockatoo. Then I think you should really get it something nice. In New York, a while back, a few years ago, there was a gentleman who, as a Jew, this is difficult. He gave his dog a bar mitzvah. Yeah. What's my job? He spent $10,000. 100 people came. He did it at Sammy's Romanian. He called it a bark mitzvah. As soon as if his friends cared about him, as soon as they got the notice that he was throwing a bar mitzvah for his dog, those friends should have immediately had a intervention. If that's not a cry for help, I don't know what is. I traveled throughout the country, and one of the things that you notice is pretty much in every local government that we pass through, there is someone who's been elected who is mentally ill. Case in point, facing a need for $743 million worth of repairs to crumbling infrastructure, the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, has convinced the city can fix its many potholes through the power of prayer. Yes, I believe we can pray potholes away. Moses prayed and a sea opened. After tonight's show, I would hope that all of you would take a moment, meet in the lobby, and form prayer groups. One thing you know about New York, our streets have real problems. So if you could get out there early tomorrow and just really give it your all. Try to get out there really early before traffic hits. That was the mayor of the town speaking, who's also a church pastor. What strikes me most about this is I've time and again have had to bring this up, and I realize I have to repeat it yet again. I've talked about it in another special, but I don't care. It's got to be repeated and repeated and repeated because nobody's listening to me. But the fact of the matter is that you Christians have to stop reading the Old Testament. You don't understand it. It literally escapes you. You haven't a clue. And I will repeat this to the day I die. It's not your book. Our book has a really mean God. Ooh, boogie, boogie, boogie. Scared the shit out of you. So you had to come up with this nice kid. That's your book, asshole. Every time I turn on a pastor on Sunday, a Christian, talking about the Old Testament, they never get it right. Ever. They don't understand the basics of the Bible. It was written by the elders. These are stories that they told to the Israelites in order to distract them from the fact that they were wandering in the desert without air conditioning. Moses prayed and the sea opened. That's a great story, isn't it? They even made a movie out of it. Huh? That's probably where this son of a bitch found out about it. That isn't the way it happened. Every Jew knows that. Here's what went down. Moses prayed, and then he prayed, and then he prayed. And then he went. And went to the Jewish people and said, we're going to have to walk around. But that's not a great story. I'm lucky that I can keep a shred of sanity because I get to travel every few years and get out of the United States. I was lucky enough 2 years ago to perform in Copenhagen in Denmark. And Copenhagen is a happy city. This is how happy they are. After I arrived that evening, looking for entertainment, I went down to the park, and a band was playing. It turned out to be the military band. And they were playing Dancing Queen. Yes, sirree, that's a country I can go to war with. Also, another reason I knew just how happy they were was because about 20 minutes after I arrived, I was wandering around to get my bearings, the neighborhood, and get a sense of what was around my hotel. And a bus drove by, and on that bus was a billboard. And on that billboard was the photograph of the most beautiful breasts I've ever seen in my life. They were glistening. They were glistening. I'm a little embarrassed, but it made my mouth water. We'll never have a billboard like that in this country, ever. It's just not going to happen. We're not sexually mature enough as a country to have it. As a country, we're about 12 and a half years old. We're not even close. And I tell you, if you put that billboard up anywhere in the United States next to any highway, there would be an accident every 8 seconds. Look at those tits. Look at those tits. Look at those tits. This is the way and I consider myself somewhat sexually mature, this is absolutely the way I reacted when that bus passed. I followed the bus. I followed it for blocks, and then I realized that other buses had the billboard. So at that point, I knew that I could sit in a cafe, and they would bring the breasts to me. It took 3 days before I realized that there was writing on the billboard. And the writing, even though I didn't speak Danish, I knew what it meant. It said, new tits. And I thought, wow, I was stunned. An ad for breast enhancement. Because I thought that we were the only country that was obsessed with enhancing breasts. But even in Happy Town, apparently they are a little disappointed in the titties. I have never understood the concept of breast enhancement. Never. It's unnecessary surgery. Unless you have a medical problem or a psychological one. What the are you thinking? You've missed the cardinal rule of life. Every breast is a great breast. And I know this from personal experience. Never have I looked down at a naked woman in my bed and thought, what a disappointment. Usually I have to stop myself from crying or saying something stupid like, and I can play with him now! When I was leaving there, I realized that I wanted to stay on because I wanted that surgery for me. I did. I wasn't transitioning. had nothing to do with transitioning. I am not, and lucky enough, I'm not a woman caught in a man's body. But I did want those tits here. Why would I put them on a woman? Why would I do that? Then I'd have to negotiate to see them. This way, they're always with me, and they're always glistening. This is truly the greatest article I've ever read about women's breasts. A lactating German woman robbed a pharmacy by squirting breast milk at two startled workers. Some of you didn't laugh at that. If you didn't laugh at that, you need to take the rest of the week off. How do you not laugh at that? Where the were you while I was reading that? Lactating, you should have been smiling. That's a funny word. Unless you're lactating, it's a funny word. Lactating woman, not funny. Lactating German woman, ha 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 ha. Robbed a pharmacy by squirting breast milk. Son of a bitch. Come on. Not breast milk being fed to a child, suckled. No, breast milk flying willy-nilly throughout the universe. God damn it. At that point, you better laughing. And two startled workers. Really? I don't think startled even begins to describe it. I don't think they were there going... Their eyes were going, bam, 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 bam. The woman called the milk sprayer made a purchase and waited for the cash register to open, and then sent a milky arc into the first worker's face. Bam, 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 bam. Reload, bam. She then sprayed a second employee. Bam, 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 reload, bam, 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 bam. 6 guns a-blazing. She rifled through the registers, stealing $125 before making her getaway. And with that, we take the first few steps toward ending gun violence. And I can't avoid it any longer now. Now we have to talk about the election. What are you applauding? Seriously, if as a public service, I should just say goodnight. Did you Republicans really need to look at all those people? Ted Cruz, all you need know, and this should have been the end of it. It wasn't enough that everybody in Congress hates him. It wasn't enough that during the time in which he was in Congress, he did a filibuster in order to try to stop the Affordable Care Act for the 50th time and spent a good portion of it reading from Green Eggs and Ham, which made me think, son of a bitch. That was when I said, if he wears aluminum foil on his head, I'll start to listen to it. But more important than that, the key to why he shouldn't have been allowed to run was they asked his college roommate at Princeton. He got into Princeton. I didn't get into Princeton. And when I meet my maker, that's the first question I'm going to ask. Was it the SAT scores? So they asked him, his roommate, do you think he'd make a good president? And he said, blindfold me, and then bring me a phone book from any city in America. I'll open it up. I'll point at a name. Whoever that is will be a better president. I have to read this quote off a piece of paper because my brain refuses to memorize it. In regards to family planning, a man running for the presidency of the United States, he said, "Last I checked, we don't have a rubber shortage in America." Now, when was the last time any of you used the word rubber in a sentence? You might have said galoshes. When I was in college, we had a machine in the bathroom. Put 50 cents in, and voila. Voila. Let's get this straight. Those of you who are Democrats and Republicans, or libertarians, or the Green Party, I don't give a f. No candidate for the presidency of the United States should ever be allowed to use the word voila. The only time you can say the word voila is if you opened a prophylactic and it flew out and landed on your dick. Voila. And then, of course, you go through all of that. And we come down to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And I have lived in New York for the 35 years, and Donald Trump has been in my face for 35 years. This whole idea that he is a great businessman is so beyond any... He bankrupted a casino. I mean, that's impossible. Unless you lock the doors and just stood in front of them. Go away! Go to Jewy Jews! Go away! You know, just before we leave Donald alone, I'm going to say something, and I'm saying this as a friend. If you vote for Donald Trump, you're going to go to hell. And I know this. And I know this because God told me. He has my hotline number, 1-800-JEWY-JEW. He always likes to talk to me after he talks to Mike Huckabee. I help settle him down. And then there's Hillary Clinton, who's had so much shit thrown at her during the course of her life that there's no way that she couldn't get the smell off. There isn't. I mean, I've traveled the country. People don't like her. They don't. And I don't think it has to do with the nonsense of that she's a criminal. I think that that's just repeating, and she, you know, I think it's the fact that she's been in our face for a long time. I'm serious. Familiarity breeds contempt. And it's made a lot of people unhappy with her. She never went away. She never went away. She's always been there. She is, for many Americans, that woman in the carpool. That every morning, the guy sits there drinking his cup of coffee and thinks, I can't believe I gotta pick her up again. She never went away. She was the first lady, and then afterwards, She snuck in to our state. I don't know what these people are bitching about. She snuck in here. And the next thing you know, holy she's the senator from New York. And she spent 6 years doing that. And then she said, I'm running to be president. And she lost. Now, at that point, anybody who loses the presidency hides somewhere. They go away. Everybody knows that. Nixon wiped the away. And then when he came back, people went, well, he wasn't so bad. You leave. Nope, not her. She became the Secretary of State. And then she finished up there and she said, I'm going to run for to be president again. Wow. There is a good chance she's bipolar. So you have a choice now about who you want to date. Either the bipolar carpooler or Orange Julius Caesar. Happy voting. But before I go, let me just say, and this I know will come as a shock to many of you, but that I wake up every morning brimming with optimism. My nipples are pert and I'm ready to go. Because I truly believe that today is going to be the day that this great country gets it right. Why wouldn't today be the day? We all pretty much share exactly the same hopes and dreams. We all basically want the same thing. And why wouldn't we find it today? Why wouldn't this be it? After making mistake after 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 mistake, and then there was the time, after mistake, that wouldn't we just by accident stumble in the right direction? Why wouldn't today be the day? God, I'm happy. I got dancing feet. I put on Dancing Queen. And I get up to my coffee table there, and I grab a mug and look down at the front page of the paper and go, maybe tomorrow. Good night, New York. Boogie, boogie, boogie. Gee, I wonder if it's gonna win. That person with me, I'm gonna do it. What's the matter with us?